es la invitación que se le presenta al oyente que escucha a que pueda configurar un escenario propio. Es un género totalmente libre en su construcción.
Radio art is the invitation that we make to the receiver,
the radio listener.
Time to configure a space for
Los ingredientes con los que vamos a trabajar son los elementos del lenguaje, con música, con efectos, con la voz, la palabra y con el silencio.
There is no rigid diagram or structure that allow us to design radio art. You're listening to the noise of the message.
Para una mejor escucha, recomendamos el uso de auriculares.
Hello, hello. Hi there.
Wow, what time is it where you're at? Oh, wow. Okay, wait. You're in Argentina, Franco, and Gerardo, you're in where?
Santiago de Chile.
Oh, Santiago. Oh, yeah, I've been there before.
Really? When?
There was a Theremin festival happening in Santiago, and that was in 2018 or 2019.
Electromagnética?
Yeah.
Con la Agnes, ¿no? The girl who invited you?
Yeah. That's great. Oh my gosh. I loved all of the street performing things too when we were out walking around. I loved how creative it was. Like, some people made these beautiful little boxes that's like a tiny theater that you put your head inside.
حبيبي بالسلام حطيت ورود الحب قدامك. بالسلام مسحت بحور الدم علشانك. سيب الغضب، سيب الألم، سيب السلاح تعال نعيش يا حبيبي ويكون غطانا سلام. عايزك تغني يا عيني ويكون غناك بالسلام. سمع العالم يا قلبي وقول سيبوا الغضب، سيبوا الألم، سيبوا السلاح وتعالوا نعيش في سلام. مصرية.
a great question then.
So,
I think it's like between noise and silence, it's like there's no way I'm going to be able to listen or have any guidance on a new direction unless it's sort of like if I'm talking all the time, I'm not listening. And so, the silence part is the listening, actually. And that's it. I think of that, it's like meditating. Not like as in you like clearing your head or anything, but I mean, I also pray very often, and there's a two-directional thing about that, where I'm on the one hand, sharing where I'm at, but I also not asking for things, but asking for guidance on what should be the next right thing for me to do, or for me to be prepared to for what comes. Isn't that kind of the same as when you're improvising? Is praying and listening for the guidance of what you're going to do next, where your ego is out of the way, not like, I want to impress these people, I'm going to do this like thing, that it's like, where it's like, can I annihilate myself for a moment and let whatever gifts and talents and experience I have in the past be just a tool for this inspiration that can come from outside of myself. And so it sounds strange, because it's so secular these days, but I would say that's letting God into the picture. It becomes a spiritual thing and that silence is to be receptive, to listen, or that intuition, or that for that thing to come. And I remember hearing Bob Moog, speaking about that place or intuition. It's not his own ideas. When certain concepts or things came to him, it's from that place and not from me. It's outside of me. And so it takes a lot of to be able to get into this place of it's like a state of prayer and meditation while playing and improvising is how I would see the importance of silence and noise.
okay, thank you very much.
Because I'm much more curious. I already know how I hear it and what I think of what I do. I like the idea of really letting go of something, but also, it's like for the person who's presenting something whose curiosity was grabbed by something, I'm interested in how they hear it, how they understand it, how it gives me a very different new perspective. It gives me new ears on what I'm doing when someone says, I like this track, and it's one that I wouldn't think is my favorite, maybe, and because I have no control over how somebody else perceives my work, and I don't think it's my job or business to change how they feel or think about something. And so for me, it's just very interesting which pieces or things resonate with different people. And it's sometimes surprising because some people, I get into conversations about certain works from other composers or film or whatever, and then they'll say, I really like this thing that you did, and I wouldn't have expected that would be something, and it shows me something new. So it gives me fresh ears on what I'm doing, to see what people pull together outside and say, and even what their assumptions are, because I don't know what it is that I even am saying with the work, because I don't have anything political inside of what I do. For instance, it's there are things that just happen in that moment, and it's captured and recorded, and that's what happened in that moment. But it's only my own secret. I'll know maybe like what or where I was at, in life at the time point that I recorded something or did something. But I also think, when someone does an interview or writes something, then it is the writer actually and not me, because they're rapping. And so it just gives me something to look at as if it's not me, and to stand outside of myself and read it. And I'm not so worried about what people think or how they take it in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very logical.
Learn a lot from what other people tell me. They'll say, if I let them, pick a track, and it's like, oh, and then it's like I want to ask them, what were you hearing on me? And it gives me an understanding of how other people are listening or hearing.
Yeah, maybe because of the conditions here, we have become more self-protective, but it's a matter of context.
Yeah, I guess it could be Buddhist, or it's definitely a spiritual thing that I feel about that. Where I don't want to correct someone else's perception, because what's true for someone else is true for them, even if it might not be my truth. And that even comes with criticism, to be able to listen to a critique. I recently had a really good critique for a new project where we're doing our vibe is definitely a very slow moving soundscape, but they're actually not songs that you sing, but they're written out changes and things happening, and it was great to hear someone else's perspective. He's like, I think you guys should have more of an uptune in there, and it's like, okay, but to take it in, it's someone else's perspective, and it was helpful to hear his input, how he was taking it in. Although I'm not going to take into account trying to please people with what I make. It's sometimes it does give me some useful input. It's like, this is how something is being felt or understood, or just no two people will have the same critique or reaction anyways. So it's more just out of curiosity, what was it like to be in your shoes for that 40 minutes?
Sure, 100%. I'm going to play in front of people that have never seen it, with things I have never played with. So, and the idea is that they observe it, it's like an open rehearsal. So it's like saying, do you tell me everything that came to your mind while watching or while listening? And to be able to take notes of everything they said, without me selecting or discriminating or having prefix or editing.
We're editing. It's like redacting. It's it's sort of like, it can feel as if Facebook, it's easy to redact. Like, here's my vacation. Here's what I ate. Everything looks perfect and nice.
Sure. Sure.
My son is like, my mom's a bitch. She just yelled at me today.
I'm curious about what was your experience playing with the Yoko Ono Plastic Ono Band in 2008?
Oh, that was it. It was fun because it was an interesting experience. Just I played a lot before that with Sean and Yuka, and so there's already a familiarity of working with them, and so it was just, I found it very touching. Just when Yoko then would come in and into the rehearsal and be describing, let's try something this way or that way. And there was this one song that that we were doing, Going Away Smiling, which is like a good part, and I thought that's so beautiful and very from the heart. And so I like to be able to just see that. Then that was also an inspiration that she's not concerned about what people think, or it's like there's something just very authentic from the heart being performed, and it was also like a kind of a surreal to concert hall space, of course, of like, whoa. And just like I never imagined that I would be, because of course that when I was a little kid I knew who that was, and I never knew that one day I might be playing on a stage with her. So that was kind of trippy, like on a personal level, like, wow, I'm pretty honored to hear and understand what it is that she was performing or doing. The old critical, what do you say, like snobby musician me didn't understand a lot of things in the past, and my perception also, the things that I chose to listen to or was moved by, has changed over time. I think it just comes with like living life, having a deep personal experiences and losses and joys that suddenly open up the ears to more than just the notes that are hanging in the air. That's something also interesting also in listening to and making me want to listen to what other people have to say about their experiencing what they hear and how they're taking it in, because they could be coming from not just that place of intellectual listening or analyzing, but from a very deep other place of how they're experiencing it, what they're listening to.
Was there anything that caught your attention in terms of process? Because Yoko is known for not giving instructions that are so precise in terms of notes. It seems that everything is in terms of feeling or atmosphere, just like Joni Mitchell did when she provided images for the musicians. Well, how was the dialogue with her in that time?
She turned over a lot of things. I think Sean and Yuka, they were very responsible for shaping the things and the production even of the music part. She gave a lot of trust to, and then I think it actually was pretty easygoing, and like there were not like drastic changes or things that had to be done. It might be more just like, how about the set list be in this order instead, or how about the length of the song maybe a little bit shorter or longer at this section. It was because Sean and Yuka also were improvisers and very open to things, and I think that they knew when they were assembling the group of people together, it would be people that would be very elastic and flexible with what's happening and intuitive, and to be able to, that they could even let go and trust and know that it was going to take shape in a nice way. So there were chords and changes and things also that were involved for some of the songs. So.
Also was ja gleich auffällt im Klang, ist irgendwie gleichzeitig etwas ganz Unverwechselbares, aber auch sehr vokal,
ja,
oder? Die menschliche Stimme.
Es ist das einzige elektronische Instrument, das man wirklich die Möglichkeit hat, mit die Vibrato sehr raffiniert zu spielen. Weil es ist schwierig auf einer Seite, aber auf die andere Seite, wenn man versucht mit einem anderen Synthesizer, zum Beispiel ein Tastatur-Synthesizer arbeitet, um die Vibrato zu versuchen zu schaffen, ist das manchmal schwieriger mit dem Tone-Wheel oder dieses Pitch-Wheel-Ding, das auch viele Synthesizer sind. Ja. Aber die Freiheit nur...
You know what? I'm so impressed because I always sort of felt improv as a way of having a conversation or talking, but the concept of praying adds extremely new variety of colors and feelings and sensations, and I feel like I'm sort of going back to the origin, and I'm going back not to the basics, back to the origin. It's like coming back to the source. And
yeah, like our voice and our humanity, it's not just music. Music is just a symptom.
Exactly. And which makes me wonder why you say in your website, I quit playing theremin to make music. What do you mean by that?
Because I like to forget that I play the theremin. I'm just making music. It's because sometimes people forget. I used to love this other quote, like, instruments don't make music, people do.
Sure, absolutely.
There's like an old quote that Clara Rockmore used from Max Rudolph, someone who was a music critic writer, I think, on the Times, had said that once. And I thought, that's a really great way of putting it.
Yeah, fantastic. And now I'm up here about the feeling. I don't feel we're interviewing you. I feel like we're talking to a friend. And that's a very joyful experience.
Oh, I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Frank.
Gracias. I want to ask you about the space with your instrument, because Theremín is the last instrument developed, and it's an instrument, it's a modern instrument.
Well, it's like you can never repeat what just happened. You can never walk in the same exact way that you walked before. So it's like you might play the same melody. It's like walking down the same street. But you're not going to walk down the same street exactly the same way ever again. And it's nice that I like this instrument as a reminder that like each moment, it just happens that one time and that's it. There's no replicating it. There's no, it's past. And so it helps to let go also when making mistakes, you know. If I hold on too long, then I'm no longer in that present of what I'm doing. And so to let go of like, whoops, that, you know, I'll adjust and move on. And the instrument is all about, you know, in working with it, I see the metaphor to, you know, being faced with life situations, people, places, all these things that are not consistent, completely like not in my realm of control. And the only thing I have any control over is my own body and cells and reaction or response. And that's the same as dealing with this freaking instrument. Like, it's just, you know, you do your best. That's it.
Thank you very, very much.
It's an autonomous being.
Well, it's more than it's a reflecting. It actually is a reflection. It's just reflecting what I am. That's it. It's almost like it makes me think of the idea of karma. You know, it's like what you put out there, you get back. And if I'm very frustrated with it, it's my problem. It's, you know, it's like, what am I frustrated with? Is it because I'm trying to do something, you know, and insisting too much that I'm closing myself off from something else, or just you know, and even it comes to like, you know, when people ask about, oh, real music or experimental, or, you know, getting to know what, if my expectations are really high, then of course I'm going to be disappointed. That's paving the way for disappointment, is to have expectations with any instrument if you're approaching it. And then to try to force a solution, like, I'm going to make it work like this, or I'm going to run it through this thing so it'll do what I, you know,
Curioso
Before meeting you, theremin was seen as a sort of instrument which was very loaded with this art music vibe. And I remember you did some improvs during that interview, which were great, and your sense of humor was so delightful and so present that I said, this is not about the instrument, it's about people who are playing it. And it was really, really stimulating. This theremin craze is kind of recent. It started, I guess, in early 2010s or something. And now it's a sort of a more popular instrument. There are more than 1, 2, 3, or 5 people. I'm part of an ensemble, and one of the boys of the ensemble, he's a multi-instrumentalist, and he plays theremin as well. And it's a very, very difficult instrument to perform with, for a start.
Oh, yeah. It's the hardest part is there's absolutely no consistency. That's the hard, like, you know, when you know how it works to tune the thing, it's not about tuning it to a certain number or place when you calibrate it. And then in understanding, you will never stand in the same spot on the floor next to it. Also, your weight will never be distributed the same way on your feet, which then changes the tune. So there's nothing to hold on to, literally.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to start.
Okay. Hi, my name is Pamelia Stickney, and I live in Vienna, Austria since 2005, but I'm originally born in Los Angeles, California. I lived also some time in the Midwest growing up, as well as the last part of growing up before moving to Vienna. I lived in New York for about 6 years, so I keep moving east. Who knows where I could live next? I'll keep going east. Since 1997, the theremin became my main instrument, and that I don't think it's something I chose. It chose me because I originally chose to be a bass player. So I was introduced to the theremin later, which I think most theremin players are introduced to the instrument as adults. It's unique in that way, except maybe in these times now that more people know about it. It's not something that normally a kid goes to someone's house and there's a theremin set up ready to play around with, like a piano might be sitting around, right? So, and besides playing theremin, I'm a mom also. I have a 13-year-old son who grew up hearing the theremin. And he was on tour with me a lot also in the past. And I like experimenting with cooking. I love smelling things. Like I've permanently quit smoking. Well, at least it feels like permanently now. And since then, it's really made my sense of smell and taste even more sensitive. So that makes it even more fun for cooking. Sometimes not so nice when there's like unpleasant smells outside, like a sewage pipe break. Then it's like, ah! Everything's stronger now. The good and the bad smells. Something like that. I used to light a cigarette to walk down the street. And it's like, okay, I could deal with that smell now.
Great! I can't believe that. We are doing this from 2011. It's the first artist that I can interview that confess that love cook. The first.
Really?
It's not the show.
Really?
Really, the first. And always try to combine the music with the cook. Because I think that music is the same thing. It's a recipe.
Yes.
Yes.
It's the same when you cook.
Yeah, you can have your style of cooking no matter what ingredients are around. You know, as a musician, whatever instrument that you can get a hold of, it'll taste different, but it'll still be your style, what you do with the ingredients.
Yes, sure.
Qual era la... non mi ricordo più?
Il rumore è il messaggio.
Il rumore è il messaggio.
Il rumore è il messaggio.
That makes it so funny when people say, I can't find my own voice, or I can find my own style. You have a style of your own just because...
That's a spiritual issue.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual thing to cook and eat and to make music, and you know, finding your voice means that I don't know myself.
Sure.
The ego is in the way. Like, I think it's sort of, the theremin was something when I say it chose me, it's not like I said, God, can you make me good at the theremin so that when I play it one day, it's easy for me? Or, you know, it's like that didn't come from me. You know, and so there are, you know, innate abilities and special things that everyone has. But sometimes if the ego is in the way, like if my ego was really in the way, I would have tried and failed at pursuing being a classical pianist, you know? It's like, you know what, this doesn't work so well for me. I don't, you know, it's like I have good ears, but this instrument is not I'm not able to really get around on it in the same way, and it took time to find the right instrument. But my voice, I think, finding a voice, sometimes other people can hear your voice before you do, and they can be helpful in encouraging you understand yourself, because we don't learn ourselves until we interact with other people or play with other people. And then all of a sudden it brings a new aspect or element out of us when we play with people at different playing abilities or styles that introduce us to something. It's being introduced to something within ourselves also. And so I think, when someone says, I haven't found my voice, sometimes I've had people come for me for lessons. And sometimes finding your voice might also be finding the correct instrument that's easy to express the voice, your voice, where it's like, and you might use different instruments depending on what it is you want to express. So then it's not only the instrument, but it's like, what is it I want to do? Because there's some things more appropriate on a keyboard. But then, if I put my ego out of the way and I say, wow, I can't do that so well on a keyboard, but I'm going to ask this person and tell them my idea because they'll express what I'm hoping to do that I can't do.
So now I can ask you, how did you come across a theremin and how did you start playing it and stuff? Please.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so I saw that documentary.
People do not realize that musical instruments are really mechanical. But now electricity is beginning to show amazing musical possibilities which will ultimately be realized through the use of electrical musical instruments. Here's a curious instrument known as the Victor Theremín, which is played touching it.
I play a bunch of other instruments, string instruments, and I've always learned things on my own by ear. But my then husband, Greg, who was in this band Geggy Tah that I was playing with, he and a lot of some of their circle of musicians friends had seen the documentary, and then they just told me about it and said, we saw this film about the theremin, and we think that you might be able to do that. You should check this out. And I didn't take them seriously because when someone tells you about it, there's this box with antennas and you don't touch anything. It makes no sense. And it was just whatever. But then finally I saw the documentary. First I was disappointed because I didn't want to see a documentary that night. To see an action film or some shit. Exy's like, I came home with a video for us tonight. And then it's like, what is this, a documentary? Aww. That's good.
Sorry, was it this documentary about Left Theremin?
Yes.
He encountered Clara Rockmore after decades of not seeing her? Okay.
Yeah, so it's that Theremin and Electronic Odyssey, and so when, within the first 5 minutes, I was, oh wow, and I was listening and watching what she was doing, and so I knew that, oh, I think I might be able to do this, I gotta try this, but they were very hard to find, they didn't have them in music shops, most people didn't know. If you asked, do you have a Theremin? Huh? And I was in Los Angeles at the time. So finally, it was by coincidence that Greg had a magazine sitting around the house with an interview with Bob Moog in it. It was the Beastie Boys magazine called Grand Royal. And then they had an advertisement from Bob's company called Big Briar for buying Theremins. So I had to buy it by mail order. There wasn't yet the internet ordering or anything. It was and then there was a big delay before it arrived in the mail. Like, I just remember there was a UPS strike or something, delivery strike, and then also, and I remember Princess Diana died also. Like, those were like the two big events, American TV is just like the local and like one big gossip thing, and so that was the world gossip when I began the Theremin. And when I first started, I put the pieces together, just the antennas, and then it was sitting on a coffee table, and I plugged it in, and I had an amp, and then I turned it on, and nothing came out, and I thought, oh shit, it's broken, I have to send it back.
But then I lifted it from the table, and when it moved away from the table, I was just holding the box, it went, and then I realized, oh wait, the volume antenna was interfered with, and I have to put it on a stand. And then I tried to play it a little bit, and it was really difficult. It felt really backwards to me in some way. And so then I turned the instrument to the other side, because I play string instruments also. And I thought, why should I do pitch with my right hand? I should do it with this hand. And so when I turned the instrument around, then it immediately made sense. And then I could figure out, to calibrate it, because my distances were too wide between the notes. And so I saw there were only 4 knobs on the ether wave model, which is a great thing for someone who's not so experienced with synthesizers yet. There's just volume, pitch, and 2 other knobs just to change the quality of the sound. And that's the best beginner instrument, because I just knew this pitch knob must have something to do with adjusting the instrument to my body, to the space, so that I could try to grab a melody eventually. But it came pretty quickly, felt very intuitive, and so I kept playing it for fun and using it with the band I was playing with, and I had ideas for string arranging at that time for a couple of songs. And we were in the process of trying to find instruments I could borrow. Like, okay, if we get a violin, maybe find a viola from someone else and a cello, and then I'll relearn it enough to play the parts. But then the Theremin, I thought, wait a minute, I could go direct with this thing, and I think I could play all of their parts with the Theremin. And so I immediately had something to use it for right away. And then other people started hearing that I was playing it and asking if I would record on their albums. And so then it just kind of on its own evolved. And not long after that, I then had the idea, what if I tried to treat it like a bass? And I had the small ether wave model, but I also had an effects pedal that could knock it down 2 octaves. And of course I had a bass amp because I was a bass player. Because I thought, with the understanding of how to walk a bass in jazz, you don't have to do very big interval jumps. It's linear. Your bass lines, when you walk to the next chord change, and so it's almost like playing scales to reach to the next place. And so it worked to do that. So then all of a sudden I thought, what if I try to pluck it a little bit and so then the idea ended up working out, and then I eventually stopped playing the bass. The Theremin took the bass gigs.
Yeah. Really amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Remember when I knew about Theremín 30 years ago, watching a movie too, Ed Wood.
Oh yes, yeah.
The Tim Burton movie.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack was the first soundtrack from Tim Burton that used Theremín.
Yeah.
Because the composer wasn't Danny Elfman, his friend.
Oh.
It's the only movie that Danny Elfman and Tim Burton didn't work together.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So, you tell us before that Theremín was not your first choice as an instrument.
Yeah.
That you play another instrument, and when you know this kind of instrument was a love at the first sight, no? Because it's the voice of an instrument that calls you.
Yeah.
Not you go to the instrument. So,
oh yeah,
what the Theremín say to you start to play this instrument and change to Theremín to your main instrument?
I think it was the different inspirations for the ways to approach it had so much to do with playing with other people and being introduced to different types of music, and then also making discoveries on it in my attempt to try to, like, for example, to work with looping pedals. To work with looping pedals, that idea came just out of financial necessity. Like, I had this gig where their budget was just crap, and I thought, for how many rehearsals there'll be to be, doing this performance, I might as well, see what it's like if I were to be multiple voices using a looping pedal. And so then I said, I'll do this gig alone, and I didn't want to play with a backing track. And so then I thought, I had my idea at first, my self-will thought, I know what I'll play. I'll play this line, and then I'll play another line, and I had this idea in my head written, but the reality didn't work that way. It was so challenging to step on the foot pedal and not mess up my tuning on the instrument. But then, it's like, at first I was getting frustrated because it was like, oh no, this is really hard to capture a loop, and once you have a loop in there, you can't erase it. You have to keep going. There's that's really scary. But then I was listening back. There comes a point where it's like, instead of being so perfectionistic and focused on here's the way I want to work with this, and it just wasn't coming out right, I suddenly kind of experimented around, and it's like, okay, maybe that second line I recorded is a little bit out of tune, but I'll continue on and just keep going and see what happens. And then to stop and listen, and then to hear, I think that's what opened me up to hearing microtones and to appreciate the depth of microtonality. And it was because I kept messing up and making mistakes, but then I thought, what if I just don't stop it and I just keep it on record and let the things happen and then play around with it. And so that opened a new door for me when I wasn't so rigid and fixed on having things be tuned as if it's like a piano or something. I think that's how I then started to become interested in soundscaping, not just in playing it as a melodic instrument, but also I like this idea philosophically as well of, once something starts, there's consequences, and you must work with those consequences then and see what happens. And there's a very short time frame for the length of a loop. I'm always using these Line 6 loop pedals, and someone let me borrow it for that gig, and then he just let me keep it over time. Ended up, using more of those pedals next to each other, because I eventually then thought of ideas of where, I could build something in one pedal and independently build something that's also not synchronized in time on another. And then I could actually fade between the two, sets of things happening. And there was like a different way of, I don't want to say thinking, it's more a different way of working with what happens. And so improvising alone and dealing with all of these, again, inconsistencies forces you to improvise further in discovering, adding different effects pedals into the chain. And, and having ideas like, hey, what if I play a multi-level loop? I started to get better and better at keeping my intonation then, because of all this practice of doing it wrong. I ended up, getting really good at balancing on one leg and tapping it into record and really having a much better control. So it's sort of like, instead of giving up and saying, this doesn't work, I did it the completely so-called wrong way until suddenly I started to, get a technique down to where I could really hold my tuning as well. Then I was in a different place of really making the decisions of how much sharper or flatter I'm going to be adding things onto there consciously rather than accidentally. But there were ideas like to run, say like I have a progression playing through the loops. If I then ran that through a harmonizer, I could then change the pitch of everything that's in the loop. Things like that could be done, which are really exciting, because I sometimes get bored playing all by myself, and it doesn't happen fast to make changes happen. And so it's different from jazz, where the chords might go by very quickly, and you're in a new place harmonically. But in this way, it's a very different way to work. But it opened up new ideas for other ways of playing with other people, and I would take pauses from playing alone to play with other people, and then new ideas come. So I think it's good to always change it up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I remember that improv you did at that show with Erwin. What was impressive most was the usage of these low tones, and now I understand why and how you started working on that. And that's what impressed me the most, because at first everybody sort of approaches the instrument just like an extra violin, because it's so similar to violin. Maybe there are more other possibilities of approaching it, not just as a melodic instrument, but also as an atmospheric instrument. And listening to you improvising confirmed that intuition. I became very, very attracted to the instrument because of this misplaying, so to say.
Yeah. And then to like really intentionally be working, to work with intention, and it's no longer, accidents, but like to hear what's happening by doing the so-called wrong thing and playing around with that. It opened me up also, people then, were hearing that in New York. And what's so great is there are people who have much more experienced ears that have heard many different things, who've been around on this planet longer, that said, hey, have you heard these composers? Have you heard these different works? Or, someone told me about, I forgot what that album is called, No Pussyfooting, with...
Yeah, that's Ryan Eno and Robert Fripp.
Yeah, and that's a looping album. So that was the inspiration actually for the Tzadik album. I found these two mirrors like in Berlin in this technical museum, and there's a tiny hole in it, so you could stand inside of there. And so I asked my friend to take a picture of me inside of there, so you would just see it looping. And I thought, it's like an homage to No Pussyfooting with all the mirrors and the rhythm.
Lovely. Yeah, fantastic.
ruido es el mensaje.
Vamos por más, dice la rana, escúchame, ¿eh? Esto recién empieza.
Pamelia, we have 1 minute left. So sad, no.
Okay, so I have to say my name again?
It's wonderful, and I am so grateful for you.
Me too.
Oh, thank you, likewise. It's so nice how receptive you guys are and so open to, like, going these very different directions. It gets more three-dimensional all of a sudden.
Yeah, the honor is all ours, and we missed a lot of questions we had to.
Yes.
Oh, that could be fun. Maybe you'll put together a panel of artists together all talking on things, I can imagine.
We'd love to. We'd really love to. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, too.
Big hugs from here.
Thank you.
Yes, big hugs. Thank you. Thank you so much.